Hello and welcome to Self-Made. I'm your host, D. Brown, CEO. On our last episode, I interviewed Judge Joseph Wood, who told the story about how he was abandoned in the streets of Chicago and how he turned his tragedy into triumph. Back this week is Judge Wood and his wife, June, to go further into the story. Welcome back to Self-Made, Judge. I'm glad to have you. June, thank you so much for joining us this time. So, there's just so much to unpack on the story, and I want to bring you back so that my viewers can get more insight into your journey. And I wanted your wife to also add some commentary to it because she has a different perspective. But just real briefly, walk the viewers back through you being found, and then you finding the individual that found you.
Sure, and glad to be back. So I'm adopted. I always knew I was adopted. The laws changed in the state of Illinois. They said if you ever adopt, you can have your original birth certificate. I applied for it. Took them some months because they were overwhelmed, and I got a foundling birth certificate. Like your viewers, what's a foundling? You were found, a kid that was abandoned, and that just blew me away. You were found on this day. I said, that's my birthday. They said, no, that's just the day you were found.
And so for 45 years,
that's all I knew.
You celebrated the day that you were found as your birthday.
That's right, because I didn't know that was the day I was found. But it caused me to say, I got to stay on this journey. I'm a fighter. I got to find the doctor who took me into the orphanage, because on the certificate it said, here's a doctor, and I went and found him. He had died in 1999. I wondered, can I find the guy who found me? I found the guy who found me, and he tells a story, again, one of the coldest days in Chicago. He goes out of his apartment complex, and there's this box with a blanket moving, snow and ice, and he didn't know what it was. He took his foot to move the blanket moved, and there was a kid in there, and it just kind of shocked him. He's looking up and down the street, doesn't see anyone. He picks the box up and carefully goes back in, wakes his wife and neighbors. They're walking around. Eventually he gets the Chicago police to come, and they're walking around the neighborhood, and they said, you saved this kid, we're gonna take him to the orphanage. And so that's kind of been my journey, and just trying to unpack and learn all that. And
now, June, what has that journey been like from your perspective? You know, obviously you've seen him deal with this situation and wanted to get answers to unknown questions. What has it been like from your perspective?
Well, for me, for Joseph and I, I've been included during the entire journey because this November we've been married 30 years. So we've been married a long time. Yeah. So I was pretty much in the beginning of his entire journey of finding his parents and finding out that he was a foundling. So, I was there when the mail came. I was there when, he looked at the certificate and found out that he was a foundling. I was there when he called Caesar Johnson because when, during his story, he kind of talks about how he was asking his opinion on how should he get the number. Because in case she hangs up, and I was the one that said, you keep things in your head, just go ahead and just call. So during his whole entire journey of how it's unraveling, I was there at every step. Right. So it's very impactful. He includes our children, our grandchildren inside of his entire journey. So it's been very impactful for us.
Emotionally. Judge, how has that journey been emotionally?
It is exhausting, and I tell you, not having the family that I have, my wife for 30 years and 3 daughters, wonderful and big champions, and 3 grandkids, 2 son-in-laws, but they are all fighters and pushers, and so where if it wasn't me, they know this is what I'd be doing to them, urging them on, encouraging them, helping them figure it out. And this time it's me, and so I spend all my time in my head, and they kind of recognize that and give me the space to let me kind of work through it, but then they're there to encourage and push, and so it's been a great support system having the family that I have, so to speak.
June, I know you were there when the day that the mail arrived, when Judge Wood expected to receive his birth certificate and finally get the answer to this question that had been looming large for 45 years, who are my parents? What do you remember about that day?
I remember he just came in from cutting the grass, and I picked up the mail and said, Joseph, you got this piece of mail that he was expecting. And he opened it and saw it, and then I saw it too, and he sat down and he was just so baffled. He was so baffled and confused And one thing he didn't mention was we had to Google what foundling meant because we
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
So it was the first time we saw it, especially on a certificate, because we were expecting a birth certificate.
Right.
And when we found this half sheet of paper saying that you were a foundling, it was just, he was disappointed. He was
Yeah.
disappointed because he wanted to receive the certificate so he could find out who his parents were.
Right.
And again, now he had to continue. Now you kind of figure, I'm at the end of a journey,
Yeah.
somewhat of a journey, but now he had to kind of pick himself up again
Right.
and continue on to figure out, okay, who are my parents? And this is what he thought
Right.
he was going to get to. And
Judge,
couldn't
that
get to.
day that you opened the mail
Mm-hmm.
and read the certificate, what do you remember about that day, and how did you feel after
Oh
reading?
my! Again, on one hand, again, this euphoria, this excitement, this wow! I'm about to find out and read on your mother's maiden name and mother and your father, because I know what a birth certificate looks like,
Right.
and to open it up and just stunned. First, what is a foundling? You were abandoned. You were found, and it just, what do you mean I was abandoned? And again, so it just really like, how bad was it at that time that
Right.
I was not taken to an orphanage. I was abandoned and left at this address. And what is that? And
Right.
so it was confusion. It was, again, she mentioned baffled. I was baffled. Disappointed, largely
Yeah.
just heartbroken again, because now after 45 years of an expectation of, man, I'm gonna get some closure.
Yeah.
It just brought a whole nother wrinkle
Whole
to
nother
it. And
level.
but again, as I mentioned, I got a house full of girls who are very driven and focused, and I'm that way. And I said, okay, I got to find this doctor who took me into the orphanage. He's got to remember something. And
Right.
and I picked up and started. Okay, I got to find this guy.
So June, that journey from discovering that there's a foundling certificate versus a birth certificate, through that journey trying to locate the doctor, what do you remember about that journey?
Well, at the time, Joseph, as he mentioned, was working with, he was a deputy secretary of state, and he went back and forth from Little Rock to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and because I was working and taking care of the kids and all, and he was working and all. So he did a lot of research online to figure out, because he knew who Caesar Johnson, because it was on the certificate. So he did some of that research himself, and it was about only 3 months before he kind of figured out a process of elimination based off of the age of the people that were named Caesar Johnson.
Right.
So he called me that morning and said that it was about 10 o'clock and I was at work, and he wanted to get my opinion on how should he proceed on asking about, my name is Joseph Wood, so he was just really nervous.
Right.
Again, he's in his head a lot, and we're there to constantly push it out of him.
Right.
So it was a short journey, but he did that part of it a lot on his own, because a lot of it was internet research.
Yeah.
And but we would talk a lot and talk about. I found this person. What do you think? And so so he did a lot of that research on his own, because it was a lot of it on the internet.
So the first time you met Caesar and his wife in person, do you recall that day?
Oh,
What was
absolutely.
that like?
So he said, hey, if you're ever in Chicago, I'd love to meet you. I said, well, we'll be in Chicago to visit my adopted dad. And what he did know is I was also going to the orphanage. It's no longer the orphanage, it's now Catholic Charities, but it still exists downtown Chicago, a beautiful place. And we had an appointment to go down there to get records. Well, the records were still sealed, but I already found out the information, like who the doctor was who took me to the orphanage and who
Right.
the guy was who found me. But also I could walk around and see the place that I was brought to, and
Right.
got there, and man, I thought we'd be there maybe 30 minutes. We were there probably an hour and a half. It was just so, because it was a transporting back to the place where I started.
Right.
The pictures on the wall, the smiling kids and nuns in their habits and
Right.
ministers. They took us to the baptismal pool. Every kid that was brought in was baptized in that pool. And so it was just, and my daughters were with me, and they showed me some of the records. You were 5 pounds when you were brought here. You are in good condition considering the health and the condition that they brought you in. You're adapting well to the other kids. So then we realized, hey, we're supposed to be meeting with Caesar. So we rushed to go over to his house, and man, I get to the door and we're hugging on each other, and I smell ribs. He said, yeah, I love ribs. We got some ribs in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love ribs. We got some greens too. I'm like, those are my 2 favorites. And we had a great relation. It was a great invite. And he just hugged and loved like we've been part of the family the whole time. He was really excited to see this kid because the last time he saw me was 45 years ago. And
Yes. Again, that's just an amazing story. June, what do you remember about that day?
The food.
The food?
It was a lot of food.
A ton of
Ruthie
food.
cooked a lot of food,
Yes.
and our girls were there. You know, as he mentioned, it was there with us. And Ruthie and Caesar wanted it so. They wanted it so bad. Because you know, when they met Joseph, they just fell in love with him. And you know, at that point, they knew that Joseph was found. And they just included him into their family. And we just became a family, and they talked a lot. But the food was the biggest thing. You know, coming back to Chicago, because we have other family in Chicago too. So and going to the orphanage and touring the orphanage and how they conduct business today. But it was very exciting for us.
So, do you recall the day that you found out that he had passed?
Wow. Where was I? I was back in Arkansas, in Fayetteville, and I got a phone call. He had again gone into the hospital, so Ruthie was keeping us up to date, and she called all the time, and she said that he had passed, and it kind of stunned me because again, that was my first connection. And in this world, if you will, and now he's passed away. So I lost my birth parents. I don't know where they are. I lost my adopted mom, and now the guy who found me, who saved me, and now he's passed away. And they said, hey, but here's where the arrangements and all, but we want you to come to Chicago and speak. And like, I don't know what I'm gonna say. And that was an honor. Again, military. He served our country and all, and just really proud of him and his family. So,
And I know since that time, you were able to figure out who your actual birth mother was. So talk about that.
So this past November of 2021, every November, I'm very involved in a lot of foster care and adoption. I sit on the state board of The Call. It's a Christian nonprofit across the country, but in Arkansas, I sit on the state board and do a lot in the world of foster care and adoption and pregnancy centers, and I speak in a lot of churches and all about this. Every November, I do a big thing as judge to talk about raising awareness of Adoption Month. To thank families who opened up and said, hey, I'm gonna give this kid a forever family, but also remind people that there's a lot of foster kids going into the holidays who are looking for that forever family. But the last piece in this announcement was, I asked and put it out there that if anybody recalls anything that happened back in 1965 around this time, I'm trying to find my birth family. And at this point, I'm running for lieutenant governor, and I never would put that out there. I would do my own research and all, but I had an attorney in my office. We were working on the contract, and he just out of nowhere said, you need to just put it out there on Instagram and Facebook. I said, I'm not doing that. And I came home and I told my wife, you know what this dude said? We got a contract to do that. She said, yeah, we do need to do that. I said, I'm not doing that. And I did it, and it just kind of took off. Next thing I know, Washington Times was calling, doing interviews. Fox News was calling, doing interviews. Family Life Today, big Christian network, called, and they did a 2-day in-person television interview, and it just kind of went viral. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls from people. People gave up their kids for adoption and say, I hope my kid has that same demeanor and expectation. This is the best I could do at the time. And it was emotional because, again, it was personal for me, and I didn't want to put it out there like that. But I also did not know how far-reaching it was that many people who are in foster care and adoption will be looking and wanting. Well, I got a call a few weeks later. In fact, it was Thanksgiving Day. It wasn't a call, it was an email. On Thanksgiving Day, that evening, after dinner, we'll get an email from C.C. Moore. C.C. Moore has a television program, The Forensic Files and the DNA Detective. She helped Lewis Gates with the search and all, because she's America's genealogist. She sends me an email saying, I want to help you find your birth family. And I'm like, I know who she is. How does she know who I am?
Right.
Well, again, because it had gotten around the country.
Yeah.
And so we connected, and she said, I want to help you find your birth family. I said, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and you may not find them, and I'm okay with that. I just want to encourage others who are in this journey to stay on that journey, because they're going to find some bits and pieces and all. Well, sure enough, Christmas Eve, she calls and says, we found your birth family. And my mouth dropped. My daughter's there, my wife, and all I could think of was, where's mama? I need to find her, let her know I'm okay. Whatever happened. I'm all good. And
I want to pause right there, June, and pivot to you. What do you remember about that day that call came in?
It was fast. I don't think we expect for it to happen so quickly.
Yeah.
Because she just reached out to him 30 days ago. She had a team of people that, because she had a heart for foundlings.
Yeah.
And so we were very fortunate that she wanted to take that on. And but because of her interest, it happened really quickly.
Right.
So when we found out, again, I'm there and Joseph sits down and he gets the phone call. And my daughter, our youngest daughter is sitting there, and she starts kind of recording the moment of when he discovers this information. And again, it kind of took me back to when he found out about the foundling certificate.
Right.
So, but being there during those moments, those very important moments in Joseph's life, is very important to me and our family. That he, of course, didn't have to go through it himself by himself.
Right.
But it was very it was emotional.
Right.
That he found out who his parents were, and then, but I'll let Joseph mention that. But when he ended up finding out again, the added information after she told him about his parents.
So after you find out who your birth parents are, and now what happened next?
Where is she? Where are they located? Are they? And, both your parents have passed away. I'm like, I mean, so as fast as I was on Mount Everest, and I come crashing to the valley, and wow. She said, yeah, your mom passed in 1978. She was 36 years old. I'm like, wow, that was young. What happened? Your dad passed in 2007. Yeah, your grandfather, he just passed in 2020. He was 99 years old. And wow. You're the baby of 4.
So how old was your mother when she had you, based on that calculation?
So I was 11 years old when she, I was been about 21 when she had me. So I was the baby of 4.
So your mother was 21 when she had you?
Right.
Okay.
And I was the 4th kid. So
I
was a baby of 4.
Okay.
So I shared with your viewers in the last episode that I was they didn't think they could have kids. People adopted me, and so they.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about your birth mother.
My birth mother.
How old was she?
She was about 21.
So she was 21. Okay.
When she had me.
Okay. Did she have any other kids?
And she did. She had 3 other ones. I got 3 brothers and sisters, and then I was the number 4.
So how has that?
Oh my God! So finding out that they had passed. She says that you're the baby of 4 kids, and I said, whoa. She said, you have a sister who's a year older than you have a brother who's 2 years older than you, and you have an older brother who's about 6 years older than you.
And do you know how she passed?
Just breast cancer.
Okay.
Died of breast cancer real young. And so then I said, okay, I got to find reach out to my brothers and sisters. One of my brothers had passed away. He's 2 years older than me. His name was Jerry. So in January, I write letters. I had to process all this. I couldn't jump right in. It's just so much going on. Now my family was like, you just need to call. You need to go. I'm like, I'm going through a grieving. Didn't know I was grieving, but that's what I was, because of the people who gave me life are gone. And so now I'm just processing that. But I got brothers and sisters, okay. I wrote letters to them. I hadn't heard anything. A month goes by. All right, now I'm writing emails. Nothing. Phone calls going into voicemail, wrong numbers. So probably in March, April, I called back to the detectives and said, I got a huge family. My family tree is unreal. My dad was one of 13 brothers and sisters. My mom was one of 6 brothers and sisters. A lot of the aunts are still around on my dad's side, 6 or 7 of them. 4th great-great-great-great-grandparents, in the records. Can I find some of their numbers to get in contact with? Maybe dead ends. The very 1st of May 1st, 3 weeks before the election, one of the detectives called and says, hey, you have a name by the name of Robert Sharp. I said, yeah, Robert Sharp Jr., he was like a second cousin? She said, no, he's your first cousin. He does a lot of family tree stuff. I said, yeah, I've seen that in my research. You might reach out to him and see if he knows how to connect with somebody in your family, your brothers and sisters. I said, all right. So I gave him a call. I said, hey, Attorney Sharp, my name is Joseph Wood. I'm a judge down in Arkansas. I do a lot of family tree stuff, and it looks like you do too. We got some overlap. In fact, your dad, Robert Sharp Jr., is my dad's brother. And he said, what's your dad's name? I said, Cologne Sharp. He said, we don't have a Cologne Sharp in the family. I said, and I know it's some overlap. He said, we don't have a Cologne. How did you get into our family? How do you know this? And so I started trying to explain. I said, I was found in the streets and all, and he had 4 kids, and one of them passed away. And he said, yeah, one did pass. And he has a daughter named Diane. He said, Diane's my cousin. I said, yeah, that would be my, he said, Cologne, we don't have a Cologne Sharp. He said, Jabbo? Uncle Jab? His middle name is Jabbo.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He said, hold on. And he calls my sister. And he said, hey, cuz, just like that. Hey, cuz, hey, Robert, how you doing? Hey, I got a surprise. I think I got your baby brother on the phone. She said, what? And he starts running through this story. He was found, and she's like, are you And then I started talking, but that's not how I wanted to introduce it to her. So I'm trying to be very careful not to scare her away, but he's an older cousin, so she had to listen to him. And next thing you know, he said, hey, I got to go to graduation. You guys exchange numbers and call each other back. So we did, and we spent an hour, and Father's Day weekend we got together, and it's just been a powerful piece. In fact, this weekend we're going to Mississippi to do a family reunion. Every 2 years they do a family reunion.
June, what do you remember about the day that he connected with his sister?
Well, the day he connected with her, we had one foot out the door because he was campaigning.
That's right. Oh, I forgot that.
So I walk in, and he's like, I'm talking to Diane. I'm like, oh, okay. So I, of course, I didn't, give him a hard time about we needing to be somewhere because it was just important.
Right.
But, during the time when he discovered, about his parents, he was running a large county. He was campaigning, and then he was dealing with the discovery of parents and a large family. So he had a lot on his plate. So, we sat there and we listened to, Joseph's and Diane's conversation. And again, it's just a lot of information because, again, he didn't want to introduce himself to her like that.
Right.
She's been receiving the emails and the letters. But, during this day and age, she's thinking it's a scam. If someone's calling, texting, emailing, or sending you a letter saying, I could possibly be your brother or something like that, people just kind of look at that and just say, I don't know if I want to pick that up and go any further. But she did mention to him that she did receive the email. She did receive the letter. But Joseph was persistent in trying to connect with her.
So, Joseph, when you made the connection, do you feel like that actually gave you some closure to?
It has, and it's still. I mean, they're calling me, and I'm the baby, of the family, and so I don't know how to be a baby because I'm always the oldest and all. And I figured out I don't have to know how to be a baby because the oldest will tell you how to be, and she does. Hey, we're going to have dinner. I'm going to pay for it. I said, you don't have to do that. She said, I know I don't have to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I said, okay, that's what happens when you're a baby. But anyway, it has brought some sense of, again, the identification. I think those who are adoptees, they walk through that. We all go through the identification piece as our teen years, but we kind of know that's mom and dad. We know where our looks come from and all. But when you're adopted, it really takes on a whole different notion. My wife and I have been married 30 years, and some people say, 30 years? Man, you guys like brothers and sisters. Don't say that somebody adopted. It may be my sister. I don't know, right? It becomes one of those. But now to listen to my sister talk, and she would get on me sometimes, will you stop that, Jerry? And I'm like, Jerry is my brother who passed away, but it reminds her so much the way I look, the way I act, the certain thing. The relatives are already picking up and seeing the similarities and all, the reunion. So anyway, it has brought some closure. There'll be some questions I still won't have answered. But we had that in our own families, right? What are some of the nuances of relatives and all, but to know I have, and to sense where I come from. And I will share this. I am been blessed. The people who adopted me, and I told my dad who adopted me this, I said, you and mama couldn't have kids. and you guys wanted to go to the orphanage and get a little girl, and you guys get there and you guys see this boy and say, I'm gonna foster this little boy. You guys gave me a life. But I'm so happy to be experiencing and finding the people who gave me life.
Yep.
And without, regardless of what happened and how it happened, tumultuous, tragic, being abandoned, whatever it is, I'm here because they gave me life.
Absolutely.
You guys gave me a life. And then what do I do and how I've been able to have a family. And I mean, he takes me off this earth right now. I know I've been
As we
blessed.
get ready to close out this episode, just take about 30 seconds or so and tell us about the 2 books you authored and what inspired you.
Yeah, so the 2 books, Saving Joy, this goes to you. Saving Joy, it really just talks about my story of what I believe at that time was my mother, a young girl who just had a kid and crying because she's happy she had a boy, but sad because she knows she can't take care of him. So she pulls the blankets off her bed and puts him in a basket from her closet and walks through the streets of Chicago in the snow and ice and leaves him at an apartment complex, hoping and praying that somebody will come and get him. And so it kind of walks through that story of how Joy got saved. And Mr. Caesar, as we talked to your viewers about, Adopting Joy is the follow-up and is the Joy's Journey series. And this speaks to the story of the people who couldn't have kids and decide we're going to go to the orphanage and foster care a little girl and get there and say, yeah, no, we want this little boy. And that's the Adopting Joy.
Judge Wood, thank you so much for being on the show.
Brother Brown,
June, thank you for joining us also. What an amazing story. I really appreciate your time. To my viewers, thank you for watching this episode of Self Made. And remember, without you, there's no me.